You won't believe what was waiting for her inside that house when she showed up to look at the apartment. The Craigslist listing had photos. It had a price. It had a name and a phone number, and a perfectly ordinary description of a 2-bedroom unit in a quiet neighborhood. What it did not have was any indication that the man who posted it had been watching her profile for 3 weeks before she ever reached out. Tonight we have 3 true Craigslist horror stories from people who came within minutes, and in one case within seconds, of never coming home. These are not urban legends. These are not creepypasta. These are accounts from real people who responded to a normal listing on a normal day and found themselves inside something they could not have imagined when they clicked reply. Check your doors. Check your windows. And if you have a Craigslist meeting scheduled this week, please read these stories first. Story 1. The apartment. I was 23 years old and looking for my first apartment alone. I want to paint that picture clearly before anything else, because the vulnerability of that specific moment in a person's life matters to everything that happened afterward. 23. First real job. New city. Nobody I knew well enough to ask for help. The kind of excitement and terror that comes with doing something for the first time that feels very adult and very permanent. I was not naive. I was not careless. I was a young woman doing what millions of young women do every single day, searching listings, comparing prices, sending messages to landlords, trying to find a safe place to live in a city that did not yet feel like home. The listing looked perfect. 2-bedroom, 3rd floor. Natural light in the photos. Hardwood floors. A price that was slightly below market, which I noted but did not find alarming. Below market apartments exist, I told myself, especially in older buildings with quirks. The landlord's name in the listing was Michael. He responded to my inquiry within 20 minutes. He was friendly, professional. He answered my questions completely and without hesitation. He sent additional photos when I asked for them. We scheduled a viewing for a Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. I told my roommate at the time, I was still living with her while I searched, that I was going to look at an apartment. I told her the address. I did not send her the listing. I did not give her Michael's phone number. I did not tell her to expect me back by a specific time. These are the things I think about now, the things I would do differently, the things that seem so obvious in retrospect and so completely invisible in the ordinary moment of scheduling a Saturday afternoon apartment viewing. The building was in a residential neighborhood I had looked up on Google Maps before going. It looked fine, older, well-maintained from the street. I buzzed the intercom at exactly 2 p.m. and Michael's voice came through immediately. He had clearly been waiting and the door clicked open. The lobby was normal, old tile floor. Mailboxes on one wall, a staircase going up. I took the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door at the end of the hall. Michael opened it. He was older than I had expected, mid-50s I thought, though I later revised that estimate upward. And there was something about the way he looked at me when he opened the door that I registered and immediately suppressed, the way you suppress things that make you feel guilty for noticing. It was not a sexual look. It was not threatening in any way I could have articulated in that moment. It was the look of someone who already knew you, not in the way of someone who has seen your photo, in the way of someone who has been thinking about you specifically for a specific reason and is now confronted with the reality of you standing in front of them. I smiled and introduced myself. He smiled back and stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was nice. That is the part that still unsettles me when I think about it. The apartment was genuinely nice. It looked exactly like the photos. The floors were the hardwood floors from the listing. The light was the natural light from the listing. If something had felt wrong about the space itself, I might have had a reason to leave that I could have named. But there was nothing wrong with the apartment. There was something wrong with Michael. He stood too close during the tour. Not close enough that I could have objected to it, just close enough that I was always aware of it. He knew things about my search that I had not told him. He mentioned that I was new to the city, that I was working downtown, that I was looking for something quiet. I had not told him any of those things in our messages. I went back through them later and confirmed it. None of that information was in anything I had written to him. I asked him how he knew I worked downtown, He said, "You mentioned it." I had not mentioned it. I told him I needed to think about it and that I would be in touch. He walked me to the door of the apartment and then followed me into the hallway and then to the top of the staircase. He stood at the top of the stairs and watched me descend, and I felt the weight of his eyes on my back the entire way down and through the lobby and through the front door, and I did not look back once. I walked 2 blocks before I stopped and took my phone out with shaking hands and texted my former roommate the address and Michael's name and the phrase, "Please keep this just in case." She asked me what was wrong. I said I wasn't sure. I said it might be nothing. 3 days later, I was searching the address on a local community forum looking for reviews of the building, and I found a thread from 14 months earlier. A woman had posted asking if anyone had experience with a landlord named Michael at that address. She had gone to view an apartment. She had felt watched during the tour. She had left and gone home and found, 2 days later, that someone had been in her apartment. Nothing was taken, but things had been moved. Small things, personal things. Her journal was on the wrong side of her nightstand. A photo on her desk had been turned slightly. Her bathroom cabinet was ajar in a way she was certain she had not left it. She had reported it to the police. They had found no evidence of forced entry. The thread had 4 other replies from women who had viewed apartments at that address and experienced similar things afterward. One of them had found her front door unlocked when she came home the evening after the viewing. Another had noticed a car she did not recognize parked outside her building for 3 consecutive days before it disappeared. I went back and looked at my messages with Michael. In my very first inquiry, I had included my full name as it appeared on my work email signature. My full name was enough to find my employer on LinkedIn. My employer listed our office location. He had not needed me to tell him where I worked. I filed a report with the police. They spoke to Michael. They found no evidence of any crime. The listing was taken down within a week of my report and reposted under a different name with different photos of the same apartment 2 weeks later. I have no way of knowing how many women viewed that apartment. I have no way of knowing what he did with what he learned about them. I sleep with my door double locked in a chain, and I have done so every single night since that Saturday afternoon when a man opened a door and looked at me like he already knew who I was. What do you think he was planning, and how many women do you think never connected the dots the way she did? Craigslist offers the illusion of normal: a listing, a price, a name, a meeting time. The next story proves that sometimes the most dangerous trap is the one that looks exactly like what you were hoping to find. Story 2. The job. I need to preface this by saying that I was desperate. I do not say that for sympathy. I say it because desperation changes the way you process information, and I want you to understand the specific state I was in when I responded to the Craigslist job listing in September of the year everything went wrong. I had been out of work for 4 months. My savings were nearly gone. I had applied for dozens of positions through every legitimate channel I could find and heard nothing back. I was 27 years old, and I was frightened in the deep, quiet way of someone who is watching the floor slowly give way beneath them and cannot find anything solid to grab onto. The listing was for a personal assistant position, private household, flexible hours, competitive pay. The figure listed was significantly above what I had been earning at my previous job. The requirements were basic, organized, reliable, good with scheduling and correspondence. The listing described a family home in a suburban area about 40 minutes outside the city and said the employer was a businessman who traveled frequently and needed someone to manage the household in his absence. It was a real listing on Craigslist, and I applied through the platform's anonymous email relay the way you are supposed to, and a man named Richard responded within hours. Richard was everything you would want in a prospective employer communicating through email: articulate, clear, professional. He explained the role in detail. He outlined the compensation. He mentioned that there had been several candidates, but that my background seemed like a strong fit. He asked me to come to the house for an interview the following Thursday at 10 in the morning. I did 2 things before confirming the interview. I searched the address on Google Maps and looked at the street view image of the house. It was real. A large house in a quiet suburban street, well maintained, unremarkable. I searched Richard's name combined with the address. Nothing concerning came up. I confirmed the interview. I did not tell anyone where I was going. I lived alone. I had been applying for so many positions that mentioning each one to friends had started to feel embarrassing. I put the address in my phone's GPS and drove 40 minutes out of the city on a Thursday morning in September, and pulled up outside a large house on a quiet suburban street and sat in my car for a moment looking at it. Something felt wrong. I want to be very specific about what I mean by that because I think the concept of instinct gets discussed in these stories in a way that makes it sound mystical, and it is not mystical. It is the aggregation of small details that your conscious mind has not yet assembled into a coherent picture, but that your nervous system has already evaluated and found concerning. It is not a feeling. It is a calculation running below the surface of awareness, and mine was telling me something was wrong with that house. I could not have told you what. The house looked exactly like the street view image. The neighborhood was quiet and residential and completely ordinary. There was nothing wrong with anything I could see or name. I got out of the car. I rang the doorbell. Richard opened the door almost immediately. Too immediately, the way Michael had opened his door immediately, the way people open doors when they have been watching for you through a window. He was well dressed, pleasant-faced. He smiled and welcomed me in and offered me coffee and showed me to a sitting room at the front of the house. The sitting room was nicely furnished. One couch, 2 chairs, a coffee table, a window looking out onto the street. Normal in every visible way, except the window had a lock on it that was engaged, and when I sat down on the couch I noticed that the door to the sitting room, which Richard had pulled partially closed behind him when he went to get the coffee, did not have a handle on the inside. I sat very still and looked at that door for a long moment. There was no handle on the inside of the door to the room I was sitting in. I stood up immediately. I walked to the window and looked at the lock, a sliding bolt, the kind you engage from inside, and I slid it open as quietly as I could. I pushed the window up. It moved silently, and I remember thinking in some distant part of my mind that the window had been recently oiled, that it had been maintained specifically to open without sound. I heard Richard's footsteps in the hallway. I went through the window, first floor, 3-foot drop to the ground. I landed badly and turned my ankle and ran anyway, not toward my car because my car was in front of the house and he would see me, but down the side of the house and through the backyard and over the fence into the neighboring property and through that yard and out onto the parallel street, and I ran 2 more blocks before I stopped and called 911 from behind a parked van with my ankle swelling and my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The police went to the house. Richard was there. He was cooperative. He said I had come for an interview and left without explanation, and he had no idea what had happened. The police found the sitting room exactly as I described it, door with no interior handle, window recently maintained, bolt lock. Richard explained that the door handle had broken recently and he had not yet replaced it. He explained that he had had the windows serviced as part of general home maintenance. The police found no evidence of any crime. They could not hold him. What is one essentially paddia tuts, vergurtu pursa, now they what he pundit Ted Zound. The Craigslist listing was taken down the day after the police visit. I have searched that address periodically in the years since and found 2 more job listings posted from the same location under different names in the 18 months that followed. I reported both of them to the platform and to the police. I do not know what happened to the women who may have responded to them before they were taken down. I think about the window sometimes, about the fact that it opened silently, about the fact that whoever maintained it had specifically ensured that it would. I do not know if that was for my benefit or someone else's. What do you think Richard was planning? And what do you think would have happened if that window had been locked? 2 stories. 2 women who trusted a listing and found something waiting for them that had nothing to do with apartments or jobs. The final story is the one that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning, because unlike the others, this one almost did not end with an escape. Story 3. The buyer. I was selling a guitar. That is where this starts, and I need you to hold on to the absolute ordinariness of that beginning, because everything that comes after only makes sense when you understand how completely routine the transaction was supposed to be. I was selling a guitar on Craigslist, a used acoustic. I had posted it before. I had sold things on Craigslist before. I knew the basic safety rules: meet in public, bring someone with you, take payment in cash, do not give out your home address. I knew all of it. I broke 2 of those rules on the day everything happened, and I have thought about that every single day since. His name in the messages was Dave, average name, average communication style. He asked a normal question about the guitar. Was there any damage to the neck? Had it been restrung recently? And I gave him a normal answer, and we agreed on a price and arranged to meet. Here is where I broke the first rule. I suggested my apartment building's parking lot instead of a public location because it was raining that day and I did not want to take the guitar out in the rain, and I had convinced myself that a parking lot in the middle of the afternoon was public enough. It was not a dark alley. It was not an isolated location. It was a regular residential parking lot in a complex with other buildings around it. I told myself it was fine. Dave said that worked for him. Here is where I broke the second rule. My roommate was home when I was getting ready to go down to the parking lot, and I almost asked him to come with me and then did not because it felt like an overreaction, because I had done Craigslist transactions alone before, because Dave seemed completely normal in his messages, because it was a guitar, not a large amount of cash, because the reasons pile up, and all of them are the specific reasons that rational people give themselves right before something irrational happens to them. I went down to the parking lot alone with the guitar. Dave was already there when I came out of the building. He was standing beside a car I did not recognize, not parked in a spot, just stopped in the driving lane with the engine running, and he smiled when he saw me and came toward me. And something about the way he moved sent that signal straight to my spine before my brain had processed anything specific. He was not alone. The car had tinted windows and I had not been able to see inside it from a distance, but as Dave walked toward me, the passenger door opened and a second man got out. He did not come toward me. He just stood beside the car and looked at me and said nothing. Dave was between me and the door back into my building. I stopped walking. Dave said, "Is that the guitar?" and kept coming toward me, and I took a step backward and said, "Actually, I just remembered I have somewhere to be," and I turned around and walked back toward my building door as fast as I could without running. I did not run because some part of me understood that running would change something, and I was not ready for whatever it would change into. Dave said, "Hey, wait." He said it twice. His voice changed on the second time. Something came into it that had not been there in his messages, something harder and more specific that I will never be able to adequately describe, but that I will never forget hearing. I got my key into the door on the first try, which felt like a miracle, and I went through it and let it close behind me, and I stood in the lobby with my back against the door, shaking with the guitar still in my hands. I heard his footsteps stop right outside the door. I stood there for a very long time. When I finally looked through the lobby window, the parking lot was empty. The car was gone. Dave was gone. The second man was gone. There was no transaction. There was no confrontation I could point to. There was nothing I could have described to the police that constituted a crime. 2 men showed up to look at a guitar and left when I changed my mind about the sale. Except I know what I heard in his voice on the second "Hey, wait," and I know that my building door was between me and whatever was going to happen next. And I know that I slept with a chair under my door handle for the following 2 weeks, and that I did not post anything on Craigslist again for 3 years, and that when I finally did, I met the buyer in the parking lot of a police station with my roommate standing next to me and my phone already unlocked to dial 911. I never found out who Dave was. I never found out who the second man was. I never found out what they had intended to do in that parking lot on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I never listed the guitar again either. It is still in my closet. I cannot bring myself to sell it. Some objects carry the memory of the moment they almost became the last thing you ever held. What do you think would have happened if I hadn't turned around? And what do you think Dave said to the second man when they drove away? Thank you for watching. 3 stories, 3 ordinary transactions on an ordinary website that became something none of these people could have imagined when they clicked reply. An apartment viewing where the landlord knew things he should not have known. A job interview where the door had no handle on the inside and the window had been oiled specifically to open without sound. And a guitar sale where a second man got out of a car and stood watching, and a voice changed in a way that the person who heard it will never forget. No monsters, no supernatural forces, no things that go bump in the night, just people with listings and plans, and the specific patient cruelty of predators who understand that the best trap is the one that looks exactly like what you were hoping to find. If these stories made you rethink your safety practices, good. If they made you want to call someone you love and tell them where you are, do it. Right now, before the video ends, leave a comment telling me which story made your stomach drop the most. And if you have your own Craigslist story, something that felt wrong, something you got out of, something you have never told anyone because it sounds almost too ordinary to explain why it was so frightening, leave it below. We read every single one. Like and subscribe for new horror stories every single week. And the next time you get a message from a stranger on the internet saying they want to meet, take someone with you, tell someone where you are going, and trust the feeling that says something is wrong before your brain can tell you why, because that feeling has been right far longer than the internet has existed.